Howdy folks. One of my favorite ways to help solve some stubborn knee discomfort or limitations with things like running, cutting, jumping, squatting is to use a mobility stick to work on my lateral quad muscles. Most people are familiar with foam rolling their IT band or these lateral quad muscles. And if you're watching this video, it's probably because you've tried that approach and it's either way too uncomfortable for you to tolerate, so you gave up on it and it didn't work, or you just gave up on it because it didn't really work. So here's a slightly different approach that I found is really effective, and it uses the mobility stick, which I find helps me get into a better position, be a bit more targeted with my releases, as well as apply a tolerable but intense pressure. I just find with things like a softball or with a foam roller, this can get really intense unless I'm basically holding myself up off the ground. Now my shoulders are getting tired, now my neck is getting tired, now my arms are getting tired, and we're not spending the time that we need to on probably the 3 or 4 trigger points that you have in that lateral quad if you still have some knee discomfort going on. So I've got this mobility stick. I love it because it's small, it's portable. You'll notice there's not a whole lot of squish to it. It's not very giving. It is basically a metal rod with a slight little bit of rubber. This allows me to apply a firm but tolerable pressure, as well as a consistent pressure. If your stick is bending a bunch, bending too much, it's really hard to get into these muscles the way you need to. So let me just get to the side here. What I really like to make sure is that I'm not putting too much weight through my leg so that this leg is fairly relaxed. I'm kind of leaning to my other side so that there's as much weight off of this lateral quad as possible. If I'm leaning too much on it, it's going to tense up. It's going to be really hard to dig into these muscles the way we need to. So leaning off to the side, nice and relaxed. Knee has maybe a slight bend to it. So again, the muscles as relaxed as possible. I always like to point out to people, you don't want to go too far down because now we're just kind of on a bone. No reason to press on that, but I'll start maybe 2 to 3 inches above that and work my way up my thigh. Again, right once you get to about the glute area, no need to keep going up here. Totally different muscles, different ways to work on those. So I like to start low personally because this is where I feel most of the trigger points. Big thing is we're not painting a wall here with big broad strokes. What we're doing is we're moving with precision to find a tender spot. I'm going to seek that tender spot out and then we're going to destroy it. So I'm going to apply as much pressure as I can. I might make little bitty movements back and forth, but I'm not moving more than 1/4 of an inch. All right. Now, if I do this correctly, if I apply good pressure, what I might feel is that muscle start to tense up and then start to twitch a little bit. And when those twitches happen, it's common for people to feel a referred pain maybe in the front or the side of their knee, which could be where you're feeling pain in this knee that we're trying to fix in the first place. So this is always great if that happens because it gives you a very obvious, clear connection between your trigger point problem here and the discomfort in your knee. Now, once I've worked for about 30 to 60 seconds on this one spot, take a little breather, work my way up a little bit and find that next spot. This is a fairly large muscle. You're going to have at least 3 spots that we want to seek and destroy so that we can actually get results with this. Now, let's say I've been doing this approach for a couple of weeks. I want to crank up the intensity. If I really want to do that, maybe I'll sit back a little bit on my table or chair so that I can move my knee back and forth. Let's say I found a spot right here, a little bit tender, but I want to take up the intensity a notch. I'm going to hold as much pressure as I can. I might do some kicks back and forth and back and forth. That's going to activate that quad muscle. It's going to press into my mobility stick. It's going to do what we call pin and strip the muscle, which is going to help it get an even more active release than if I'm just sitting here applying that pressure on it. Again, I wouldn't start off with that because it can be pretty intense. So maybe give yourself a couple of weeks of just the seek and destroy method before we do the pin and strip method. So that is a very long form video on how to make sure we're using our mobility stick to work out trigger points on the outside of our thigh. Have fun.